Hey, folks, welcome back to the show. Today's episode is going to be short, sweet, and all about a medicinal mushroom, one of my favorites. It is called lion's mane. And if you're not familiar with this mushroom, you're going to want to be by the end of this episode. And we're going to talk about 10 different reasons why lion's mane mushroom is an exciting mushroom for us to study and may just earn a spot in your rotation when it comes to supporting your brain health, and many other things as well. You will find lion's mane mushroom quite often as part of nootropic stacks. For example, Collagenous, that delicious chocolate drink by Optimizers, has lion's mane mushroom in it, as well as others. Medicinal mushrooms is a fascinating area. And obviously, like many of these kind of medicinal foods, it's been part of traditional Chinese medicine for centuries. And so those guys have been onto it for a very long time, but it's now being studied a lot more in North America and more broadly in conventional kind of research circles. Obviously, there's not a ton of money that goes into it because it's a food, but nevertheless, it's showing enough promise that I actually wouldn't be surprised to start to see at some point maybe medications or more studies studying exactly how it works and what it might do. So the most active compounds in lion's mane mushroom include things like eriniacines and hericinones. I don't know how to pronounce these things properly. I apologize. But bottom line, lion's mane mushroom is neuroprotective and antioxidant properties, has neuroprotective and antioxidant properties specifically for the brain, in addition to other systemic effects, it looks like. And what it does is it seems to increase the release of nerve growth factor, which appears to be key to its neuroprotective effects, and even helps to reduce apoptosis in nerve cells. So that's cell death in nerve cells. It definitely is active in the hippocampus, which is responsible for memory and learning. It may help to improve cognitive function. It's also been shown in small studies to positively impact mood and decrease anxiety in very specific populations. So what does lion's mane even look like, and can you eat it? So as it turns out, it's beautiful. The first time I saw it was at a farmer's market, and I go to the mushroom stand because, there's the mushroom guy is there, and he's got all these boxes of amazing mushrooms. And then there's this one box that looks like it's got a head of cauliflower in it. And I'm like, why are you selling cauliflower? Like, you only sell mushrooms. And he goes, oh no, this is not cauliflower, my friend. This is a lion's mane mushroom. And not a word of a lie, it looked like a giant cauliflower. But when you picked it up, you could feel it's more spongy, right? It's a very different texture. It's quite soft, and it's beautiful. It's kind of creamy white. And if it had been allowed to fully grow out, it looks like a lion's mane. But basically, the way he told me to make it, and I ran home and did, is I kind of sliced it into thick slices, and I sauteed it in some butter with some salt and a little bit of garlic, and holy jumping, it was delicious. It's very, very mild in flavor. Yeah, I mean, it was delicious. Having said that, you're not really going to be able to eat enough lion's mane mushroom to get any of the therapeutic benefits we're going to talk about. But, it's a nice side benefit. It's kind of like shiitake mushrooms, right? Anyway, so there is a growing body of evidence that points to its value as a powerful and very safe tool in your longevity arsenal. And like I said, traditional Chinese medicine has been using it for a very long time. Something to bear in mind is choosing the right supplement. So I'm not going to get into brands here today. I will mention one. I really like the Real Mushrooms brand because I actually interviewed Jeff Chiltern years ago. And he impressed upon me even then that the quality of the mushrooms and the knowledge of the person and the integrity, actually, of the person who's making those supplements is going to have everything to do with how efficacious that supplement's going to be. Because how the compounds are extracted, whether extracted with water or with something like ethanol, is going to affect, number one, which compounds you can access. And also, are you extracting from the fruiting body or are you extracting from the mycelia? And then when it comes to the mycelia, what is it? What's the medium that the mushroom is grown in? Like, never forget that what mushrooms do is they concentrate the elements from the medium that they're grown in. And so if they're grown in not great stuff, you're going to get very concentrated, not great stuff. So don't, it's not like you have to go for the most expensive, but be very cautious and really do your due diligence when you're researching your mushroom supplements, because it's going to have everything to do with both getting any good value out of them and definitely knowing what you're getting out of your different supplements. And so some of the bioactive compounds include polysaccharides like beta glucans and also terpenoids. And those two categories of compounds need to be extracted with some kind of a solvent like methyl or acetyl acetate, because they don't dissolve in water. Now, that doesn't mean that a water extraction process is useless. We're going to talk about a couple of cases where the bioactive compounds we want are from a water extraction, but definitely you need to be mindful of how your supplement was processed. And so let's talk about 10 different benefits or potential benefits of using lion's mane mushroom. We're going to really kind of dig into some of the research here. So in the show notes, you will find references to a lot of the studies and articles that I looked at to kind of compile this list. And this is not an exhaustive list. There's more research, there's more papers, there's more possible benefits, but I kind of stuck to the main ones. Well, I mean, you could argue the 10 might not be fully the main ones, but this is what I came up with. Okay. So number one, really interesting. It may be beneficial in the presence of mild cognitive impairment. Like, this is actually, human studies have shown this. So one human study delivered significant improvements on a rating scale of dementia in persons suffering from general cognitive decline. Like, it actually helped them to function better. This is huge. They were given 3 grams a day in capsules in divided dose, and they were found to actually improve. The only thing is that the benefits in both of the human studies I'm going to talk about here, the benefits faded 4 weeks after they stopped using the mushroom. So in those cases where you have someone who is suffering from some mild cognitive decline, and even in early stage Alzheimer's, if you're able to convince this person to take lion's mane mushroom as a supplement, under the advice of their medical doctor, of course, making sure that it's not going to interact with anything that they're already doing. If you notice that it is helpful to them, they're going to have to keep taking it, because it's not the kind of thing, it's the kind of thing that when it's on board, things get better. But as soon as it gets out of the system, the benefits kind of slip away. All right. And then what else was I going to tell you? So sometimes also in these studies for dementia and Alzheimer's, what they would do is they would take one extract and they would add another one of the active ingredient, of the active bioactive compounds. And I think the one in particular was the areniacine, was the one that they really enriched the supplement with that. And that seemed to move the needle for these people. And so I will include the link to this study in the show notes. It's called Improving Effects of the Mushroom Hericium arenaceus. So Hericium arenaceus, if you're going to research this yourself on PubMed, that's how it shows up quite often. And this is on mild cognitive impairment, a double-blind placebo-controlled clinical trial. So they're actually doing these studies on humans and double blinding them. Okay. Benefit number 2, it is showing value in the support of depression and anxiety. And again, they're small, but this is in human studies. In 2019, they did a study on obese adults. They gave them 3 400 milligram capsules a day, so in divided dose. And they had 77 subjects in this study, and it helped. And overall, against the control group, they had better symptom. They had a reduction in symptoms when it came to depression, anxiety, and they had better sleep. So specifically, now, there's always going to be, now, this isn't a broad ranging, everybody's going to benefit from this, but in that population of people, there was definitely a benefit. And then in another population of people that might be of interest to this audience is they looked at another small study looking at 30 menopausal women, and showed that lion's mane supplementation was helpful for them on depression and anxiety after just 4 weeks of supplementing 2 grams a day. Now, I love the way they gave it to them. So again, we had a control group and our test subjects here, and everybody got 4 cookies a day. Who wouldn't feel better with 4 cookies a day? Now, the placebo, the control group got 4 cookies that had no lion's mane in it, and the test subjects got 4 cookies that had each had half a gram of lion's mane in it. So at the end of the day, people who ate their 4 cookies got 2 grams of lion's mane a day, and they looked at impacts on sleep, anxiety, and other general menopausal symptoms as defined by the Cooperman scale, and showed that after 4 weeks, overwhelmingly, everybody seemed to feel better. So if you're going through menopause or perimenopause, or you're suffering from certain aspects of menopause, why not throw a couple of, get your hands on a good lion's mane supplement and give it a try. In this study, like I said, it was 2 grams a day. Okay. Benefit number 3, it may actually protect against stomach ulcers by preventing the growth of H. pylori and protecting the stomach lining from damage. This was not a human study. This was a mouse study. However, it's pretty interesting, and there's a lot of alignment between mouse physiology and people physiology. And I can tell you, it might help your brain. Whether it helps your stomach or not, we don't know, but it definitely might help your brain. Number 4, also showed positive benefits for heart health through positive impacts on triglycerides without lowering HDL cholesterol. Now, this was observed using the extract specifically from mycelium of the mushroom rather than the fruiting body. So this is where you're getting where the supplement is getting its active compounds from really matters. Number 5, in diabetic mice, it was helpful for management of diabetic symptoms. Specifically, they supplemented them for 6 weeks, and it was shown in the diabetic mice to have a lowering effect on their blood sugar, and it even seemed to help with diabetic nerve pain. We're going to talk more about nerves in a minute, but how cool is that? If it can help to balance blood sugar, that's going to help us with our longevity goals. Yes? Yes. Okay. Number 6, cancer prevention. In mouse studies. Now, in this one, they used both hot water and ethanol extracts of lion's mane. So that means they're going after all the compounds, the water soluble and the ones that don't dissolve in water. And in this particular study in mice, it appeared to inhibit the metastasis, so the spreading of colon cancer cells specifically to the lungs, by 66 to 69%. And there are definitely other studies in the cancer realm, in the oncology world, that shows that it has seems to exert anti-metastatic benefits in many different types of cancers. So yet another reason to maybe think about and discuss including lion's mane supplementation in a person's regimen with their care team. Number 7 refers to one of our hallmarks of aging, inflammaging. It seems to be able to lower inflammation markers in general. So taking that lion's mane supplement, remember we talked it's anti-inflammatory, antioxidant at the beginning of this presentation, it seems to be able to be helpful in lowering inflammation markers. Number 8, improves immune function. Now, in mice specifically, it showed significant benefits through action on the gut microbiome and activity of the intestinal immune system. Now, many of you are going to know that your immune system, there's a huge chunk of it lives in the gut. And so in this experiment, these poor little mice were injected with a lethal dose of salmonella. And the ones that were given lion's mane extract lived 4 times longer than the ones who did not get the lion's mane extract. So, and the paper goes on to discuss about all of the different mechanisms of action that they're imagining here. And basically, it all seems to be coming in through the gut and effect on the microbiome. Number 9, this is another one, interesting one, showed benefits to healing of nerve injuries in rats. And that was all they did, was they used the lion's mane water extracted compounds here. And then in other animal studies, it also showed that it can speed repair of brain and spinal cord injuries by supporting the growth and repair of nerve cells. And taking it a step further, it also seems to be helpful in reducing the severity of brain damage after a stroke. So what does this mean? I mean, this means that it's possible that if we're dealing with some kind of nerve or brain damage, like a stroke or something like that, as a nutritional supplement, it may be a supportive adjunctive supplement to include in someone's regime. Again, in the case of strokes and whatnot, we want to double, triple check with the care team to make sure it's not somehow going to interfere. I haven't seen anything in the literature that says it would, but when we're dealing with someone who's really unwell and dealing with some big challenges, we definitely want to be extra careful. Number 10, in vitro studies. So this is where they take the lion's mane and they put it in a test tube and showed that it was helpful in reducing the oxidation of cholesterol in the bloodstream or in the blood. So we know that cholesterol in and of itself, and this is a big debate in the functional medicine space, in the biohacking space, cholesterol is not in and of itself bad. We need cholesterol. We need healthy levels of cholesterol, and we need the right kinds of cholesterol in our system for good cell membranes, for brain function, for all the things. But one thing we don't want is cholesterol that's been oxidized, that's damaged. That's the cholesterol that's going to cause trouble in our system. And so if this is something that can help to reduce the oxidation of cholesterol in the bloodstream, then we can only win, right? So that's another really interesting one. Now, we've talked a lot about the effect of lion's mane in cases of whether it's obesity or menopause or dementia or Alzheimer's and all of these kind of sick states. Not sick. I mean, being in menopause and obesity is not necessarily sick, but you know what I mean? Like in states of imbalance, right? Now, really interesting. There are 2 studies. There are probably more, but I found 2 studies that were done on healthy participants. And this is where things start to get interesting, right? Because sometimes we read about supplements that, have this or that effect. But if we read the fine print, it has this or that effect significantly on people who are in a state of imbalance. Now, in the case of lion's mane, one study in healthy participants showed improvements in what's called the mini mental state examination test compared to placebo. And so what is the mini mental state examination test is a really good question. So the mini mental state examination test, or the MMSE test, as it's commonly known, is actually a test that's used to measure mild cognitive decline. So it's about 30 questions, but this was done on healthy participants. So these are people who weren't having cognitive decline, but they performed better on this test after lion's mane mushroom. So that's kind of positive, right? That's why I've used lion's mane in the past, is to support my ability to learn and memory, that kind of stuff. And then in another study on 41 healthy adults, they measured improvements 1 hour after supplementation, and then they kept them taking it for 28 days to see what happened after 28 days. But after just 1 hour, people performed better on the Stroop task, which is a measure of working memory and attention. And then after 28 days, there were improvements in cognition and mood. So mood keeps coming up. I find that quite fascinating, actually, because who doesn't want something that's going to help them to think better and to be in a better mood? And in that one, the dose was really quite low. They only used 1.3 grams a day. So in the grand scheme of the world, it was actually not that much. So how do we use it? So definitely, you can eat you can eat lion's mane mushroom, but you'd never get enough for therapeutic benefits. So if you enjoy mushrooms and you can find lion's mane mushroom and you want to include it in your diet, that's A-okay. Go for it. But really, if you're looking for therapeutic benefits or nootropic benefits, then you're going to need to look for good tinctures, powders, or capsules. But like I said at the beginning, it's super important when it comes to mushrooms and medicinal mushrooms in particular, your sourcing is going to be really, really critical. So if you have questions about sourcing, or if you want me to recommend some brands, I'm happy to do that. I'm not going to do it in this episode. I wanted this just to be pure information for you guys, and I'm not I mean, I did mention a brand earlier. I mentioned two. I mentioned Collagenous by Bioptimizers, and I mentioned the Real Mushrooms brand, where I really think those guys know what they're doing. But there are definitely other brands out there that are great. But you will find lion's mane mushroom baked into many nootropic stacks out there, many brain health stacks. Because that's really what it's known for. Even though we went through 10 different things, and some of them, a lot of them were metabolic in nature or had other, nerves and stuff like that, nerve benefits and stuff. By and large, the way that many people look at it is for cognitive support and memory and learning. Now, on the cognitive benefit side, particularly when we're dealing with people who are having imbalances in that area, you're looking at dosing around 3 to 5 grams per day. In terms of side effects, no real known side effects. In some studies, there were a few people who had some GI issues. But for the most part, I mean, I've used lion's mane mushroom myself, and I know in my communities, many people do use lion's mane mushroom, and most people have zero side effects whatsoever. And like I said, you can put it in a smoothie. You can put it in your coffee. Tastes really yummy. Actually, there's another brand of coffee called Everyday Dose, which is a really neat coffee blend where it's 80% less caffeine than traditional coffee. So it's not fully decaf. So there's just a tiny bit of caffeine for that nootropic effect, but it has lion's mane in there as well. I love that coffee. I love the way it makes me feel. Plus, I love the way it tastes. So that's another little free plug for someone. And that's about it. I mean, that's all I've got for you guys for lion's mane mushroom. Let me know if you want to hear about more mushrooms. I was going to do 3 mushrooms, but I really wanted to keep this short for you. So the other mushrooms I was thinking about talking about, one is chaga, which is really interesting mushroom for immune modulation and immune benefits. Another one is reishi, which is another one. We've got turkey tail, we've got cordyceps. We could be doing short little episodes on all of these mushrooms. Or is there something else you're dying for me to talk about? So let me know. Thank you so much for being here. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you enjoy these episodes, please make sure that you leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening to this to. And if you want to do live Q&As with me, stuff like that, you're going to want to check out my BSP community. And to do that, go to my website, natnidham.com. And look at the top. There's a tab that says BSP Community. Click on that and you'll get all the download, all the details of all the fun things we do in that community. It's a private membership community. And of course, you always have the option of the Facebook group, which is much bigger. And I'm not in there quite as much. I don't do live Q&As in there at all. But a lot of people like that community as well. But thanks so much for being here. Have an amazing weekend and we'll see you again soon.